Hello everyone, welcome to Court with Krissy. I've got an update. The HOA president who was put on probation now has a violation, and this is his hearing. But don't worry, up north Judge Dad does not let us down. As always, if you happen to miss the first appearance, link is in the description as well as in the video. What's my favorite part? When all the community members wrote a letter stating that they don't have an issue with the victim, it's just the HOA president. Looks like somebody needs to get rid of their president. I hope you like it. Court with Krissy is now in session.
I guess thing I would like to address, there's a probation violation hearing. It looks like Ms. Morton is on. We sent a stip to adjourn on Friday. It's my understanding that the court didn't get it or didn't sign it yet. But I don't believe Mr. Hubble is here for that either. So I'm just asking the court to resend that.
So which one is that?
Briggs. So there's a couple things with that. I was notified yesterday of that.
Yeah.
And I was told it was coming over yesterday, and I said, well, get it to me via email. But I just want to be clear, there is part of the stipulation, something about there's no objection to the defendant to appear by Zoom if it goes out past the 16th. There's more to this. That I'm not aware of. I guess I don't know if the court can just hold this off until we get the stip to you so that we can, the court will have time to move. Well, and the bigger issue is, I don't want them thinking that they can appear by Zoom because he's already denied that once in a motion.
Let me see if I can pull up your step.
Were you able to find the stip? I looked for it. I didn't find it, and I don't have access to the email, so I'm wondering if it's in our email. But I don't know.
Oh, I think I found it here.
You found the stip?
Yeah.
Oh, in your queue.
Okay, so you've got a witness issue, and Mr. Hubble agreed to adjourn because of that.
But it was my understanding Mr. Hubble agreed to adjourn it only if we can set it tomorrow. Does that say that in the stip? That was the email I got.
Well, it says he's available to appear January 16th, Thursday, and January 23rd. Let's see. Should the hearing be scheduled for a different date? They're asking for a Zoom appearance because of travel out of state.
Which you've already denied prior. I just want you to know that in a motion that was submitted.
Is this the driveway case? The
Yes,
plowing?
yes.
Yeah, I want him here in person, so.
Okay, so I guess.
So do we have something available on the 16th or the?
Well, Judge Haley's here. That's in 2 days, and he's got a busy docket. But
How about the 23rd? And I'm not sure why we're trying to accommodate his vacation schedule. He's the one who allegedly committed a probation violation.
We had 6 sentencings that day, 2 probation violation hearings, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 prelims and a jury trial in the afternoon on the 23rd. So that's your choice.
That doesn't sound like a good day for it. So I'll agree to the adjournment, and we'll have to figure out a date for it. But I'm not trying to accommodate his being in Florida because that's what's going on
I'll
here.
still have to be here. I'll make sure Mr. Hubble knows that he needs to appear in person whenever it's said.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, this is file 1419 of 2024. People versus David Briggs Jr. Good morning, sir. And Mr. Hubble is here on behalf of the defendant, Mr. Olson for the people, and Ms. Morton from our probation office is on the screen there. So this is a probation violation hearing. I'm assuming we're going forward with the hearing. Is that right, Mr. Hubble?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So is there anything we need to take up before we get started with testimony?
Well, Your Honor, I do anticipate to be able to show some videos. Ms. Morton join us by Zoom. I could try maybe to zoom in and share my screen. Would that work? Or
You could do it that way if you want to. Otherwise, Ms. Morton could come up and appear in court. Whatever's easiest.
you want to share a video, so she would be able to watch that while she's on the Zoom call, I think.
You can.
Yeah, I would just need to have permission to share my screen.
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll try that way.
Okay. Is that what you want to do first, or did you want to take some testimony?
I'll take some testimony first.
Okay. Why don't, before we get started, is that you, Mr. Anderson? We've got what I think will be a fairly quick hearing we could take up first. Go ahead with the testimony.
We could call Jerry Blended, stand your
Okay. Before you get seated there, sir, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth so help you God?
So, yeah.
Go ahead and have a seat. And please start by telling us your first and last name and spell the last.
First name is Jerry, last name is Quinones Blend, Quinones -Blend, BLEHM.
Go ahead, Mr. Olson.
Mr. Flem, you live on Mary Chris Lane, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're familiar with Mr. David Briggs, is that correct?
I am.
Where does he reside in relation to the property where you and your husband live?
Out my front door, he is to the right of my property, and there's an empty lot between us.
From your vantage point of your parking of your driveway, are you able to see his driveway?
I am.
During this past winter, winter of 2024 through the current, have you had any issues as it relates to Mr. Briggs plowing along Mary Chris Road in front of your house?
Yes.
Can you describe for the court kind of what's transpired, and when you, as you do so, provide an approximate time frame of what you observed, what you were doing, and what you observed as it relates to Mr. Briggs?
After we left here the first time in probate court and everything was settled, and Mr. Briggs was told not to plow in front of our house or adjacent to our property, he would only not plow in front of our house if I was out plowing my driveway. He would lift his plow up at the beginning of my property and at the end of the property. If I was not out in my driveway and I was inside of the house, Mr. Briggs would plow past our house, throw the snow back into our driveway. There's been numerous times we actually had to put a camera out, and I would plow my driveway and get the driveway all plowed, put the snow blower away, and you could almost count the minutes before he would get in his truck and plow snow back in the driveway again.
This incident that you're describing of you blowing out the driveway with your snow blower, while you're doing that, do you see Mr. Briggs at all outside?
I do.
And where is he standing?
Normally he's in his truck plowing. I've seen him stand at the end of the driveway when I've been out talking to the neighbors across the street.
And can you just elaborate on the sequence of events? As you're finishing the clearing of your driveway, do you ever see Mr. Briggs standing outside of his residence?
I have seen him, yes.
And then how shortly after that, after you
I would say less than 10 or 15 minutes after, he would get in his truck and literally start plowing. And I would, because he wasn't supposed to be plowing in front of our house, I would plow our road in front of our house because it had to get plowed. And he would still plow the snow back into our driveway.
How many times, based on your recollection, how many times has that type of pattern happened?
Well, it's happened until he finally hired Elmer's to take over the plowing of the snow. And one time Mr. Briggs was out with his yellow tractor and I didn't know what he was up to. So I actually went over purposely in front of him and adjusted the camera on my tree so he would see that we had a camera out the road.
Was there another time where your car was parked out on Mary Chris Road and you were attending to something in your car?
Yes. I pulled up my car to take my aunt to a medical appointment. And I did not have my snow tires on my car, and my car got stuck. So I had to get out on the road and put salt and cat litter underneath my tires. Let it set for a few minutes, and Mr. Briggs was coming the other direction. And he flashed his lights at me a couple times, and I was actually out on the road looking to see if the salt had melted, and so I could get my car unstuck. And he just didn't, just came by us as normal.
And in that incident that you're describing, could you see Mr. Briggs driving the vehicle?
Absolutely, yes.
And you see Mr. Briggs in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you describe where he is in the courtroom and the article of clothing he's wearing?
He's sitting to the right of me with a leather jacket on and a purple shirt.
And record reflecting court identification, Mr. Briggs?
It will.
Did you and your husband also supply the prosecuting attorney's office with videos?
We did.
And are those videos taken from the camera that you have in the front of your property?
Yes.
Now, at this time, I would like to I'd like to play these videos and have Mr. Glenn describe what's transpired in those.
Okay, any objection, Mr. Hellman?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna sign in the Zoom and then see if I can share my screen.
I'm just going to be in awe of counsel being able to accomplish this technical. I
Oh,
want to look over his shoulder.
that makes two of us.
Sorry, Daddy.
So I pulled up a series of videos. There's, I don't know if you can see it from there, but the top video shows a main road, and then there's 2024-12-3. Is that an automatic date and time stamp that's placed on the recording? So I'm going to show you the first one that is appears to be December 3rd, and it shows there's a 12_38_50. Is that the time that video is taking place? Is that an example of the plow being driven by your house?
Yes.
Were you able, did you capture, was this captured automatically by your camera on your house?
It was.
Did you have an occasion to be able to independently observe who the driver was?
I did.
How did you do that?
I was just standing right in front of my window of my living room.
And could you observe who the driver was?
Yes.
Who did you observe the driver to be?
Mr. Briggs.
This next video, it looks like it's dated December 4th at 2:35 or 12:35 p.m. Play that for you. And what's happening in that video?
That was me finishing up snow plowing our driveway.
The next video I'm going to show you is same date, approximately, it's at 12:41 p.m., a few minutes later. And what did you observe in that video?
Mr. Briggs again getting in his car right after I got done plowing my driveway and throwing snow back in it again.
And on that particular incident, where were you when Mr. Briggs drove by?
I was on the side of my garage.
So you're outside.
Yes.
So you're able to independently view this in addition to the video?
Mm-hmm.
Prior to you, as you were completing clearing out your driveway, had you seen Mr. Briggs outside at all?
That moment I did not.
The next video, this has a date stamp of the same day, but it's at 13 military time, which would be 1:02 p.m. Can you tell the court what's happening in that video?
That's where my car got stuck on ice out in the road.
And you appear to be walking back to your residence, is that
I
correct?
went back to the garage to get some salt and cat litter. My aunt was inside the car.
Next video I'm going to show you is same date. It's at 13:03, which is approximately a minute later. And can you tell the court what's depicted in that video?
I was coming out of the garage, going towards my vehicle to place the cat litter and salt underneath my wheels.
The next video is same date of December 4th, 13:05:38, which is 2 minutes later. Can you tell the court what's depicted there?
Mr. Briggs in his vehicle coming towards me where I'm standing up by my van.
And you say, Mr. Briggs, did you observe him in the driver's seat?
Yes, I did.
And are you aware that one of the conditions of the probation is for Mr. Briggs not to come within 500 feet of you?
Yes.
And this next video is still the same date of December 4th. It's approximately 1 minute later. It's at 13:06. Can you describe to the court what's observed in that video?
That was actually Mr. Briggs passing by my vehicle while I was outside in the back of my car.
Where were you when that happened?
I was at the tail seat of my car is up and I was back there putting the salt and the cat litter there.
And is this the same, is this the video that we saw before where we saw the vehicle approaching, was there one single pass or was there more than one pass?
A single pass.
This last video I'm going to show you, it shows a date stamp of
Not sure what changed, but now we can hear you.
I feel like somebody's logged in with the computer volume on.
Wonder if I can just mute that screen.
Yeah, maybe.
I had a witness that was gonna be logging on
That
by
could
Zoom.
be.
Okay, I just muted,
That person, thank you.
well, I muted Mr. Olson's screen. I don't know if that'll work.
I don't know if we need sound. This next video I will show you, Mr. Blunt, it shows a time and date stamp of December 9th, 2024, 12:38 p.m. Can you describe what's depicted in that video?
Just Mr. Briggs going by our house, throwing snow in our driveway.
On that particular occasion, do you know whether or not, where were you when that happened?
That when I was not outside or anything at that time.
So you did not independently observe that, this is just captured by your camera? All right, at this time, I will stop sharing my screen. Can you describe to the court any other issues you've had with Mr. Briggs since he's been sentenced to a term of probation?
Yes, we had a lawsuit going between the HOA, which Mr. Briggs is in charge of, and Tony and myself, my husband. And we ended up having to go to mediation. And so between the two of us, we had to come to an agreement, which we did, and we had it in writing. And that agreement stated that if we had any other disagreements that we could not figure out as regular human beings and talk through it, that we each would have to pick a mediation attorney And we would have to go back, write a letter what the problem was, and it would get determined who, I guess, is the winner or the loser or whatever. And that goes with everything. Part of the mediation was that myself and Tony were allowed back at the meetings. Mr. Briggs signed everything. Since then, Mr. Briggs has sent letters to our attorney just 2 weeks ago. And then we also received personally from Mr. Briggs's attorney a situation about our garbage cans, a situation about the way we have a tarp on our gazebo protecting our patio furniture. And then he has also sent letters saying that the owners of the subdivision, the majority of them would like us either to obey or to move out of the subdivision. And then he also sent a letter saying that the majority of the homeowners there are not going to show up to the meetings if we don't show up. And all of this stuff was already negotiated in the mediation, but he's continuing to harass us and bully us all the time.
The correspondence that you've received since he was sentenced, has any of that correspondence consisted of a HOA violation where there's a monetary fine?
No fine, but he claims that we're in violation of the tarp being around our gazebo, and our attorney said that there's nothing in the bylaws that state that. We already did the.
Judge, I'm gonna object as to your saying whatever their attorney said.
I'll withdraw that.
Well, this is a probation violation hearing. I'm going to allow the witness to testify to what his attorney told him.
Regarding the tarp, let me ask another question. Did you did your attorney at one point respond to the letters regarding the tarp to Mr. Briggs?
She did. And did your attorney address
the consistency or the application of the supposed rule about tarps?
She did.
What was addressed in that letter?
Judge, I'm going to object as hearsay. I think we have a copy of the letter. I would prefer that the letter be admitted into evidence.
Well, I think it would probably be quicker if I just reviewed the letter and as far as the attorney's opinions, maybe the homeowner's agreement, if you've got a copy of that.
All right, may I approach witness?
Sure.
And for the record, the videos that I showed, that was marked as People's Exhibit 1. I'll mark this as People's Exhibit 2. This is a printout of a letter. I've asked Mr. Clement to review that.
Yes.
Is that a letter that your attorney sent to the attorney for Mr. Briggs, not Mr. David, a different attorney of Mr. Briggs, not the attorney that's here in the courtroom? And in that letter, is it addressed regarding the fact that Mr. Briggs also has tarps on his property?
Correct.
I would admit People's Exhibit 2 for what you do.
Objection, Mr. Hubbard.
Don't have to check, just like the.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Blunt, you referred to some litigation that was resolved between yourself, your husband, and Mr. Briggs, is that correct?
Correct.
Was there, as part of the HOA, did Mr. Briggs seek to have all the HOA members reimburse the HOA for the legal expenses related to that lawsuit?
He did. I think his goal was to get.
Judge, I'm gonna object as to relevance.
Well,
Materiality here.
this calls for speculation, is my problem with it. And, but you can have him respond to your question about whether the case was settled or, you know, what the terms of that settlement were.
Was the lawsuit that was between, you had a counterclaim against him, is that correct?
We did.
And were all of those claims resolved through the mediation?
They were.
So that case is no longer, is that correct?
Correct.
Did the Mr. Briggs, on behalf of the HOA, bill HOA members for the legal costs on that?
He did.
Judge, I'm gonna object it's irrelevant. I mean, are we litigating the civil case again? I'll be glad to do that, but I don't think that's appropriate.
Well, I think what Mr. Olson is trying to show is a pattern of harassment, but we are getting pretty far afield from the actual probation violation. And so that point has been established. Do you intend to go deeper into the settlement agreement?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'll move on. Mr. Blum, how does it make you feel when Mr. Briggs is operating a snowplow in close proximity to you or your husband?
We're sick to our stomach that we're in this position, that we're scared to go outside, that we gotta have extra cameras outside, that, you know, if he's told by the court that he's not to do this or that, and he just disobeys and he does exactly what he wants. We're nervous. We shouldn't have to be.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Hubble, any questions for this witness?
Just a second, Your Honor. When you were describing the incident where Briggs allegedly drove his car past your car parked or stuff on the road, you described it as he came by your testimony. Remember that?
Yes.
He just drove by. Remember that?
Which date are you referring to,
This
Mr.
is
Hubble?
the, I believe it was the, towards the end of the various videos, Your Honor. It shows a car in the middle of the road, truck driving up, plow truck driving up and driving around the car in the middle of the road. When he,
You're talking about when I was out there and my car was stuck on the ice.
when you were describing it before we saw the videos,
Mhm.
your description of it was that he came by and drove by. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. You had a different statement to the police officer. Do you recall that? You remember telling the police officer that you were stuck in your car in the middle of the road and you went to get salt for under the tires. You remember telling the deputy that?
Yes.
And then he said, well, you were out salting. David flew by him in his plow truck, getting just inches from him before David flew around JR. JR said David was flashing his lights and slamming his plow in the ground in an intimidating manner.
He did flash his lights. He did drop his plow. He lifted it up and he drove right by me when I was standing out there.
But the video doesn't show any of that, does it?
Well, the video didn't show because he was at the other.
Sir, the video doesn't show any of that, does it?
Mr. Hubble, please don't interrupt the answer because he was attempting to answer you.
Your Honor, I was asking him a yes or no question.
Okay, you can fully answer the question. Was not a yes or no. But did you care to add anything to your answer?
No.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hubble.
It's true, isn't it, that the video did not show that behavior? Isn't that true?
True.
This civil case you were referring to, you did come to an agreement at mediation, isn't that true?
True.
And the case was settled,
Yes.
and there were terms of the mediation agreement.
Correct.
And following that, you received a letter from Mr. Briggs' attorney, or your attorney received a letter complaining that you had violated the terms of mediation. Is that true?
Yes.
And you and your attorney disagreed that you were violating the terms.
Yes.
Okay. In the meantime, you this upset you that you were being contacted through your attorney. Isn't that true? You were upset.
Well, yes, we all want this to stop. We're tired of it.
Okay. So you had an agreement, and there was an allegation that you violated the agreement, correct? Just an allegation that you violated the mediation agreement.
On Mr. Briggs' assumption, yes.
Okay. And when his attorney contacted your attorney, you fired your attorney. You didn't.
We did not fire our attorney.
Okay. She's no longer representing you in the case.
We are done with the case. And as she said in the letter to Mr. Briggs, that I am no longer representing Tony and JR.
Okay.
But at any time that they need to rehire me, they will feel fit to.
So at least at this stage, the claim that you were violating the mediation agreement is not resolved.
Say that again?
At this time, the claim that you were violating the mediation agreement with these tarps, that's not resolved. There's just attorneys going back and forth saying, you did it, you did it. So
Because nothing's done the right way, the way it's supposed to be done. If there's a problem, it's supposed to be solved out between the two of us. And it states in there that if we can't, then we have to hire mediation.
Okay.
We shouldn't be, Mr. Briggs should not be sending letters out. He should be coming to us first. If we don't agree, it's stated out in the mediation that we contact the 3 attorneys and we pick one and we go back to mediation. That's how it's supposed to be solved.
But Mr. Briggs can't come and see you, can he? Because he's not supposed to have contact with you outside of
Well, then
counsel.
we go to mediation.
Okay, so,
It's very simple.
okay, so again, it was your testimony that prior to when Mr. Briggs drove past the car, that he banged the plow on the ground and flashed his lights at you?
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right.
My aunt was in the car and seen it too.
The instances where you claim that your driveway is being filled up with snow from the plow, those only show an inch or 2 of snow on them, on the road during that time. Isn't that true? The videos
It
only
doesn't
show an inch or 2 of
regardless if
snow.
it's one snowflake. He
Excuse me.
is not supposed to plow adjacent to our property.
Excuse
or
me,
in
Judge,
front
I
of
have
our
an
property.
objection. I believe that was a yes or no answer.
Okay, well, it was non-responsive to the question asked. The question was about how much snow was on the road.
I don't know at that time.
But the videos would actually show how much snow.
I
Never
guess if
mind.
you-
I'll withdraw the question, Judge. I'll withdraw the question. On December 2nd, which is before these videos started, you sent a letter to probation. Do you remember that?
I signed-
Email to probation, I believe it was you.
No, not me.
Okay, it was signed Tony and JR.
My husband wrote it.
Okay, okay. I don't have any further Just a second, Judge. I don't have any further from this witness at this time, Judge.
Mr. Olson, did you have any redirect?
One question, Mr. Bland, is it fair to say that the videos that we just showed in court don't capture everything that you observed? Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
No further questions.
All right, if there's nothing else, then you may step down. And Mr. Olson, do you want to check and see whether Ms. Mogenberg and Mr. Settles want to put something on the record at this time before we go further? Okay. Right, Mr. Olson, do you have additional evidence or witnesses?
I would ask to call Jan Morton, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Morton, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth so help you God?
I do.
And you are Jana Morton, probation officer for Mr. Briggs, is that correct?
That is correct.
Go ahead, Mr. Olson.
Thank you. Ms. Morton, Morton, sorry. Have you had any correspondence with the defendant regarding the issues of plowing in front of the victim's home?
I did. I sent him an email on December 2nd when I received an email from Susie Barchef at the prosecutor's office. She had forwarded me the victim's email. So I emailed Mr. Briggs asking about him plowing in the subdivision.
And did Mr. Briggs respond in an email to you on December 13th?
He originally replied on the 12th. I'm sorry, on the 2nd, December 2nd. And then he sent me another one on the 13th.
On the email on the 13th, did that letter start back to you as quote, would you please tell the quote victims, end quote, to leave me alone?
Yes, it does.
Can you describe what Mr. Briggs has said to you about the plowing incidents, both in person or by phone or email that he's explained to you?
He denies doing it. He said his wife and son usually snowplow. I know there was one correspondence where I had believed when he was sentenced that he was going to use Elmer's for plowing to avoid all of this. And so I asked him about that, and he said everybody was upset about the cost of that, so he went back to snow plowing. But he has denied any contact, or he's denied any of the adjacent plowing to the victim's house.
Did you also inquire his compliance with taking anger management courses?
I did ask him how that was going.
Have you received any confirmation that he's been attending anger management?
Yes, the last confirmation I have is from December 23rd. He's completed 5 of the 12 sessions.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions, John.
No questions of this witness, Judge.
Okay, any additional evidence or witnesses, Mr. Olson?
Not for the people, Your Honor.
Mr. Hubble, I do not see any other participants on my Zoom call here. You said you were expecting a witness to appear by Zoom?
I'll work with or without that witness, Judge.
Okay,
I mean, if, I understood the witness was going to be available by Zoom. If they're not, I did not issue a subpoena.
okay. All right, then, do you care to offer some testimony then? Okay. Right, if you could please raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat. And if you could please start by telling us your first and last names and spell the last.
Mariah Everhart, Everhardt.
And how are you employed?
Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Department as a road patrol deputy.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Hubble.
Deputy, you were tasked with investigating this potential probation violation.
Yes.
And you went out to visit the parties, it looks like on December 12th.
Yes.
Okay. And you wrote up a police report. You remember that?
Mhm.
And you, in the police report, you discussed with JR, Mr. Glenn, that was just testifying, the circumstances regarding when the car was stuck in the middle of the road. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And do you recall what he said to you about how Mr. Briggs was acting or driving?
I do.
And what did he say?
He stated that when he was salting his tires, in order to take his aunt to a doctor's appointment, that the car got stuck, he was grabbing salt, and when he grabbed the salt, he came back, started salting the tires, that Mr. Briggs flew by after flashing his lights multiple times and dropping his plow in a harassing manner, and that he flew by very, very close to the vehicle.
And you looked at the video at the time,
I did.
and you also observed the other videos at the time. Would that be fair?
Yes,
And were you able to identify any driver, and the driver might have been in those videos?
I was not.
The you live on a county road or a city road?
I do not.
Okay. Have you ever had a problem with the snow plows coming by and filling your driveway with snow after you plowed it out?
Yes,
So you went back then and talked to David Briggs and his wife, Mary. Do you recall that?
I do.
And they gave you their version of the situation
Yes,
and basically denied any violations.
correct.
And you went back to talk to the complainants after that. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Okay. And I believe you went back to talk to them to say, okay, what's going on? What's your side of the story? How did this all start? That be fair?
yes.
And what did they say to you?
They said that it's been going on for a little while and that they have been trying to get this to stop. He's not allowed, they showed me the paperwork for the probation and the PPO, the PPO, and all the different requirements. And the adjacent to property, he's not supposed to be plowing. And that he's been blowing the snow in their driveway as soon as they're done plowing, along with contacting lawyers, lawyer to lawyer, and they no longer have that lawyer available. They're no longer paying for that lawyer. And that they're just tired of pretty much the harassment going on.
Okay. So were they incorporating this purported harassment as part of the lawyer to lawyer communications?
Yes,
So that was at least a motivation for them of why they were being harassed.
yes.
I don't have any further this witness.
Mr. Olson, any questions for
No, you're.
people? All right, you may step down. Do you have any additional witnesses? Go ahead.
Mary Briggs.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth so help you God? Go ahead and have a seat. And you are Mary Briggs, the defendant's wife, is that correct? Go ahead, Mr. Hubble.
Ms. Briggs, you had a chance to be in court this morning. and watch all the videos?
Yes,
Okay. Do you work outside of the home?
yes.
Where do you work?
Townhouse Lane, South Under,
And how many days a week do you work?
5 to 6 days.
What time do you normally leave?
Time is around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning,
Okay. And what time do you get back?
12:30, 1 o'clock,
About the time of the videos?
yes.
Okay. Which vehicle do you drive?
I drive my white truck,
Is it,
plow truck,
is it the plow truck?
yes, it is,
Is that the truck that's used to plow the subdivision?
yes,
Do you drive that pretty much every day to and from work?
every day,
Do you, when there's an inch or two of snow and there's on the road, do you typically drop your plow going out and then again coming back in?
every day,
And why do you do that?
to keep the sub clean,
Okay. Does it make it easier when David would have to do the more technical plowing?
yes,
Do you or David charge the homeowners association for that additional service?
no,
Do you believe that you were the one driving the vehicle, on the videos where it shows the plow going past there?
I know I was,
Okay. It shows the plow driving, I want to say, on the side of the road next to their house. Would that be when you're coming back home?
yes.
And so that would be the normal side of the road you're on,
When I-
correct? So you come into the subdivision, there's a couple of inches of snow on the ground, what do?
I drop the plow in the middle of the road, and let me know in the trucks,
And you go all the way to the end?
yes, I did,
Alright.
down the cul-de-sac,
And have you been doing that, for how long?
since we've been doing subdivision, 20-some years,
Okay.
but I've been plowing for 30.
Okay, so you are testifying, you're sure it was you that was driving that truck?
I'm positive it was me.
Okay. Nothing further from this witness at this time.
Mr. Olson.
Briggs, what do you do at Townhouse Lane?
I plow.
Is that a plowing service or is it a location?
We have rentals and I go to work and I clean the rentals and plow the complex.
So it's an apartment complex that you plow out? And then, and you plow that starting at 4 AM and you return back to the neighborhood around 12:30 or 1?
If it needs plowing, I'll go up there and I'll start plowing. If not, then I'll start working in the units and then come home around that time. So, yes.
You indicated you plow for the HOA, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
The HOA, who's the president of the HOA
My husband.
and who's on the board of the HOA? Is there a board of directors? Sorry to interrupt you. Is there a board of directors?
Yes,
How many people are on that board?
3.
And do those other members have voting authority?
Yes,
And is Mary Chris is a private road, is that correct?
correct.
The HOA is responsible for plowing that road, is that correct?
Correct.
And in years past, Mr. Briggs has plowed Mary Chris Road on behalf of the HOA, is that correct?
Correct.
And you're now plowing the roads, you said?
I have plowed for years on the workers' one. When we went deer hunting, I plowed.
When you would plow, you would be acting basically as an agent of Mr. Briggs as president of the HOA, isn't that correct?
As an agent, I do if I don't get paid.
But you're doing it at
I'm doing it as a favor.
as a favor to him. It's his obligation to have the road plowed.
People so they can get in and out. And then also if you need an ambulance or a fire truck to make sure that they can get down. There's the garbage people that you have to, they're coming. There's the meal delivery person that has to get down too, so.
Most of those deliveries and things like that, those would happen sometimes in the mornings, is that correct?
I mean,
Those types of activities could happen in the morning, is that correct?
correct.
You're indicating that you typically wouldn't plow at least at the earliest until 12:30 or 1 PM, is that correct?
No, if you got a snowstorm, you're gonna go out there and start plowing right away.
Okay, I misunderstood. You indicated you went to work, you would go to work every day at 4 or 5 a.m.
Yes, I
Would
had apartments that I was getting available, ready to get rent out, because I knew we were going to go to Florida. So I'm a morning person. I get up early in the morning and I go and plow at apartments and also clean the units, and then I'm home around 1 o'clock.
When is you typically plow Mary Chris Lane? What time of day?
In the morning when I leave for work, and then on the way home when I come home from work.
So you plow early in the morning before you head to work.
Right.
You indicated you're doing this for free, is that correct?
Right.
You live with Mr. Briggs, I presume. In the past, has Mr. Briggs charged the HOA for plowing services?
Yes.
And did he charge for services this year?
Yes.
So you're not being compensated, but Mr. Briggs is for your plowing, is that correct? The video, you said that you were the driver depicted in those videos, is that correct?
All except for the one where we had, JR was in the middle, where I was in the truck with him. Every
So-
time he was following the subdivision, I was in the truck.
Okay, so when you previously testified that it was you plowing, that applied to only some of those videos, is that correct?
I can swear I was in the videos, all except for that one. We were both in the truck and JR was in the middle of the road.
And the person in the driver's seat was your husband, Mr. Briggs, is that correct?
Correct.
So the videos that we see of the plow, Mr. Blem in the road with the white car, that series of videos, your husband's driving.
Only that one, and he had the plow lifted up and went down the cul-de-sac, and I asked him, I said, hey, the cul-de-sac is getting pretty full, can you go and plow it? Because I didn't want to get stuck. So he did, we went and got in the truck and we went down there and plowed it. In the meantime, one of the older neighbors, he was 86 years old, he asked, could we plow him out because there was a big snowstorm and his wife was having surgery. So we plowed his driveway out also. When we came back, JR stuck in the middle of the road.
Your Honor, I'm gonna ask that the witness, that this is non-responsive to my question. Now we're getting to a narrative that's being voluntary.
I kind of lost track of what was the question.
I confirmed that it was her
Okay,
husband driving
so-
the car in that incident.
So why don't you go ahead and ask another question then?
Ms. Briggs. So the video that's shown where Mr. Blem is out on the road, you're in the passenger seat, Mr. Briggs is driving the snowplow, is that correct?
Yes, he is, but the plow,
Is that correct?
correct.
And it just as could have well have been you in the driver's seat and Mr. Briggs not in the truck at all, is that correct?
I guess.
There is, knowing the history and the conditions that your husband has, and the fact that you claim to plow by yourself, you could have been plowing that day without Mr. Briggs in the truck at all, isn't that correct?
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Hubble.
Trying to apologize to the court for not clarifying a couple things. Ms. Briggs, would it be fair to say that you don't do the more intensive technical plowing of the subdivision
Yes.
that Mr. Briggs does? If there's 12 inches of snow, do you do the plowing? Do you plow when there's a big snowstorm?
No.
Okay, so the plowing we're referring to is you driving to work and there's a couple inches of snow.
Correct.
And you drop your plow at 4 in the morning and going out. And the videos of you dropping your plow around noon, coming back.
Correct.
All right. And it was brought out that you are charging the homeowners association. You charge them by the pass, am I correct?
At the job.
By the job. So every time David drops the plow,
Yes.
they get a bill. When you drop the plow, do they get a bill?
No.
Okay, so that's what you meant, that you're providing that service gratis to the residents.
Correct.
And so you are acknowledging that David was driving the truck on the videos which show him driving, I'll say slowly, past the car in the middle of the road.
Yes.
So it's your testimony, those other videos are actually of you driving.
All right, any other evidence or Mr. Olson, I guess, did you have any other questions?
No follow-up.
No, okay, you may step down then, ma'am, and
Mr. Briggs, please state his name.
all right, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Right, and you are David Briggs Jr., the defendant in this case, correct? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hubble.
Mr. Briggs, since you were ordered by the court not to drop the plow in front of the complaining witness's driveway, have you ever done that? Did you drive?
Never, not once.
How do you handle that when you were plowing?
I drive up to it, I lift up, go past them, drop it down, keep going.
Okay. As a result of this complaints, are you providing the snow plowing service anymore?
No, I had emailed Jenna and asked her, is my wife plowing a violation? And I didn't hear back from her, and then she said, I got violated, I hired others. I don't want no confrontation, I don't want any problems.
But you are, when the video showing the truck driving past their car in the road, you heard the testimony claiming that you banged the plow on the ground and flashed your lights. Did you do that?
No.
Did you in any way attempt or intend to intimidate them?
No.
I don't have anything further at this time, Judge.
Mr. Olson.
Mr. Briggs, your wife testified that you do technical plowing in the neighborhood, is that correct?
Yeah, I clean up the edges.
And the way that the plowing occurs, what you just testified to is that when you approach Mr. Blem and Mr. Quinona's property, you lift up the plow,
Yeah.
and then you pass by it, and then you drop after there.
Right.
So if in those circumstances, their stretch of the road isn't being plowed at that time.
Right. Well, till Mary makes her pass when she goes to work and comes home.
So there's a time gap between
Correct.
that. Is
I
there
got
any?
pictures of it, yeah.
So their part of the road doesn't get plowed until whenever your wife gets around to it. Is that correct?
That's what they requested.
Is it?
Yes.
They requested that their portion of the road not be plowed at all?
Well, when I got sentenced, you brought up the point about them being intimidated about doing it, and the judge ordered that I couldn't plow adjacent, so I stopped it.
Do you recall at your sentencing indicating that you were going to contract out plowing again this year and it wouldn't be a problem?
I might, I just don't recall what I said.
It was you, and you acknowledged you were driving the snow plow in the instance that we saw in the video where Mr. Blem is out on the road in his car. Is that correct?
Correct. I was not plowing the subdivision. I was going out to the county cul-de-sac to clean that up, and then did our friend's driveway. I was in the up position when you saw that picture, and the pounding wasn't on the road. It was me bringing the wing out. It doesn't make a noise when you drop the plow because it just falls hydraulically. I brought the wing out so I could make myself smaller to get by him. That was the clang you heard, the bang. And I wasn't trying to intimidate him. And the light flashing was probably the plow coming up in front of the light. I don't know. I thought this was all over back last fall. And when they violated that one thing at mediation, then I go, oh no, here we start all over again. That's why I had my wife ride with me every single time I plowed as my witness, because I never plowed adjacent to their property one time.
Of other neighbors other members of your HOA subdivision complained to you about your plowing?
No, never once. They're the only ones.
They're the only ones.
When they like ditch their grass last fall.
Can I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Mark, this says People's Exhibit 3, Your Honor. Mr. Briggs has asked you to review that, and do you recognize the content of that letter?
I got a stack of paper that tall. I don't remember this.
Okay, you don't remember it?
No.
Okay. You don't remember it, but do you have any basis to believe that this isn't an actual letter that you received in December of 2023?
Those people last summer begged me to plow.
That wasn't the question.
Oh,
Do you have any reason to doubt that this is a correspondence between one of?
I don't remember the bottom part, but the top part I do. But the bottom part, I remember that.
Do you have any reason to dispute that this was a response back to your letter to all the residents?
What was the date on that?
December 12th, 2023.
2 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah, I get so many letters. I guess I don't have any reason not to believe that.
And in this letter, are you familiar with Dennis and Sue Erdman?
Yes.
And in this letter, is this a letter where they are complaining to you about your plowing?
That's not what the majority of that letter is about.
Do they complain about your plowing?
They complained, yes, that they had just some bumps of dirt. I never heard that before. Bumps of dirt.
And what precipitated that was you telling other residents that through the states and move them further back?
Correct.
And in the letter from Dennis and Sue Erdman, they say, we do not wish to have the edge of our grass torn up and find clumps of sod in our ditch in our driveway. We have already clogged our snow blower. Number 2, we have sprinkler heads abutting the pavement and do not wish to have them damaged. Number 3, we do not wish to have the doors to our mailbox blown out. I've already had to repair bolts that hold the mailbox to the wooden post. And number 4, not scraping to the very edge of the grass line helps preserve the road shoulder and minimize the amount of repairs needed in the future. That's what they indicate in the letter. Is that correct?
They may have, yeah.
And then they go on to say, I cannot fathom the reason or your logic of why you would dictate to us where to place our snow sticks along the edge of our driveway.
I wasn't dictating. If you read the letter really.
That's what they said though.
Right, but I was not dictating. They needed to do those things that I was gonna plow for nothing. I got $1,200 to my truck, damages from those stakes to my truck.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 4. It's a letter that you received in July of 2024.
Well, part of it.
That's a letter that you received, is that correct?
No, I don't recall this letter either. I mean, what are you wanting me to remember?
I'm asking you if you recall receiving that letter.
No, I do not recall seeing this letter. There's 2 groups of people in our association, and they
Judge,
some
I'm
of them
object-
talk to
it's
each
not
other and some
responsive.
of them.
Judge, I'm gonna object, is not responsive.
Okay, well, he's trying to explain why he might not know about that letter, but
Whatever, Judge, that's fine.
yeah, let's move on, Mr. Olson.
You've never seen this letter.
I can't recall that letter, but like I was saying,
Okay, I think
They
if he
exchanged.
doesn't recall the letter, he doesn't recall the letter. If there's a basis for admitting it, I'll hear that, but this witness doesn't recall it.
Okay. You don't like Mr. Quinones and Mr. Blum, isn't that fair to
they
say?
don't bother me a bit,
They don't bother you a bit?
not a bit. I thought this was over last fall, and we were in mediation. And they said we said, what about the green tarps? And they said, it's just temporary. This fall, they went right back up again. My lawyer wrote a letter to their lawyer saying, you said temporary. They are all winter. He says, no, that's seasonal. That's what this is all about. I have no problems with them at all.
Do you have tarps on your property in the winter
I
time?
have no tarp 16 feet in the air.
Do you have tarps on your
I
property?
have no tarp 16 feet in the air.
Do you have tarps on your property?
Everybody does.
Okay.
They're on the ground where you can't see them from 200 feet away.
Does Mr. Quinones and Mr. Blum's sexual orientation have anything to do with the way you're treating them?
Not a bit. We have a gay guy on our board, which I was instigating to have him on the board. We rent to gay people. We go to dinner with gay people. I resent that.
I have further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Hubble, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down.
I have no further evidence to present, Judge. I don't believe the witness ever made it back on.
Let me check here. No.
Okay.
Mr. Olson, anything else?
Judge, I would ask, I either move to admit People's Exhibit 4 or I can authenticate through a witness.
Judge, he doesn't remember it. I think it's not really, we're litigating a civil case.
Okay, this has to do with what, tarps or
Tarps, yeah, it's the civil.
No.
case.
snowplow?
It has to do with what other members of the HOA are, how they're viewing the interaction between the victims and the defendant.
Okay, well, if you want to call a witness to establish the authenticity of the letter, that's fine.
We would call Jose Quinones.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and have a seat. All right, and you are Jose Quinones. Could you please spell the last name?
Quinones.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Olson.
Mr. Quinones, I'm going to show you what's been marked People's Exhibit 4. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
It's a letter that it was given to us by Sue and Dennis, just across from us.
Is it a copy of an email or is it a letter?
It's a letter that they have lost.
Were you carbon copied on that letter?
No, they just handed us.
Okay, well, at the top, does it show who the recipients are?
Yes, sir. Actually, all the neighbors.
Okay, do I move to admit People's Exhibit 4?
Judge, I object, my objection is that we're being drawn into litigating
Okay.
the civil issue. It's not material.
Okay, well, this is the thing. I don't know anything about the contents of the letter, so I don't know what the relevance is. So I'm going to ask Mr. Olson to tell me what the relevance of the letter is.
Your Honor, the relevance is it puts the defendant on notice that other residents are expressing dissatisfaction with how he's treating Mr. Quinones and Mr. Blem, and their observations
As
about
far as the snow plowing goes, or something else?
pretty much everything, Your Honor. Maybe I'll just do this, Your Honor, if I can. Mr. Blem, Mr. Quinones, on the first paragraph there, what does it say? This is a letter written by Dan and Sue Erden, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then on paragraph 1 there, are they addressing What matter are they writing to Mr. Briggs about?
Which one you know?
On item number 1.
We do not agree to pay the special assessment or any further assessment for legal costs against the Quinones family. These costs are due to a personal vendetta between Dave and the Quinones. None of the other residents has any problem with the Quinones family or the property.
Judge, I continue my objection. I don't know how it's relevant that, you know, we know there's a civil dispute going on. We have some sense that somehow it's some motivation for why we're here, but we shouldn't be in the position of bringing all that in, because the only thing that's relevant is, was he driving the vehicle in violation?
Okay, so I'm going to allow the portion of the letter that was testified to, and there's good reason to believe it's authenticity. These are neighbors, as even the defendant acknowledges. They are apparently involved in this whole issue as members of the homeowners association, and the defendant singling them out in some way differently than the other members of the homeowners association is relevant. You can make your argument about that, but I'm going to allow that portion of the letter in.
Your Honor, if I may, there's another paragraph that talks about the snow plowing for this upcoming season, which is what we're dealing with.
This is a letter from July 2024, correct? Okay, go ahead.
Paragraph 2, can you read paragraph 2 that addresses the snow plowing?
We do not agree to special assessment for an overrun on the budget for snow plowing. If they want to outsource the snow plowing, that is great, but we do not need the platinum plan with Elmer. In addition to high prices, they utilize very large and heavy trucks, which are not needed and are contributing to excess wear and tear of the road. We recommend getting quotes from other operators to select one with more reasonable cost. The overrun for winter 2024 should be taken out of the association savings account.
Thank you. Objections,
I
Mr.
renew
Hubble?
my objection, Judge.
Okay, once again, I do find the statement to be authentic and relevant, so I'll admit that portion of the letter as well. Anything else, Mr. Olson?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Did you have any questions for this witness, Mr. Olson or Hubble?
Close enough, Judge. It's getting late. No, Your Honor, I did not.
All right, you may step down. Anything else?
Not from us, Your Honor.
Okay, I want to recall the officer for a moment. And you're still under oath, Deputy Everhart, so if you could take the stand there. When you question the Briggs about the complaint that was made by the Quinones, did Mr. Briggs ever indicate that it was his wife driving the plow truck?
He did.
And did she also confirm that she was the one driving the plow truck?
She did, Your Honor.
Did they tell you that Mr. Briggs was driving on the December 4th incident where Mr. Quinones' truck got stranded in the road?
They did say that Mr. Briggs was driving and that Mrs. Briggs was in the passenger seat.
Okay, so they confirmed Mr. Briggs was driving on that occasion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions, but do you have any questions based on the officer's testimony?
I do not.
Or you, Mr. Olson?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you're all set. You may step down. If there's nothing else evidence-wise, then argument, Mr. Olson?
Judge, the court may recall the sentencing in this case. My recollection was that Mr. Briggs is gonna be farming out the snow plowing for this year so that we wouldn't have any further interaction or altercations. And what we've seen is that's not been the case. There was a representation made to the probation office that he's not been doing any snow plowing. And then we hear from the witness stand that actually he was in fact driving the snow plow on one of those occasions. To the extent that his wife is snow plowing, she's doing it at the behest of him. He's not outsourced this. And then Mr. Blem's testimony of just a pattern of him clearing the driveway and then him personally observing through his personal observations above and beyond the video of Mr. Briggs operating the snow plow. We would submit that he has been violating the terms of probation not to snow plow adjacent to their property. So we would ask the court to take appropriate action.
Mr. Hubble.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, clearly you can't tell in the video who's driving. The video doesn't show that. The court's order was not preventing my client from plowing the subdivision. Certainly, candidly, he wishes he'd hired Elmer's, but he didn't. The court's order was to not plow in front of their driveway. He believes he honored that. If in fact his wife was plowing as she testified, you can see in the videos only show an inch or two of snow. They're not showing, a major snowfall. I don't believe that the court's order prohibited his wife from plowing as she did. Again, as she said, she's trying to do people a favor. She's not trying to violate the court's order. In addition, Judge, I think it's instructive. Mr. Blend was testifying. He testified that my client drove past the car, the one in the middle of the road. When he talked to the police officer, however, he had a whole different scenario. He claimed that there was aggressive actions, that he flew by the car, etc. The video doesn't show that, Judge. It clearly doesn't. He was exaggerating. This whole thing is a continuation, unfortunately, of the civil matters between these people. It's unfortunate, but I don't believe that Mrs. Briggs driving the plow truck when there's an inch or two of snow, trying to keep the road a little cleaner, is a violation of the probation. I don't believe that prosecutors carried their burden. Thank you.
All right. So it was also my understanding that the defendant was going to contract out the plowing, and the idea that the defendant's wife was going to do the plowing was never discussed. I think it would have shown very poor judgment for that to have happened, even though as a technical matter, I suppose the court did. I don't have any control over Mrs. Briggs. And I guess if you want to apply the terms of the probation order in a very technical manner, maybe that was okay. But the poor judgment in doing that, I have to decide whether it's more likely it happened the way the prosecutor described, or whether it's more likely it happened the way the defendant says it happened. And so the poor judgment that would indicate to me is at least some evidence that it happened more likely the way the prosecutor argues. But in addition to that, we do know that on the December 4th date, it was in fact the defendant who was driving the truck on at about the same time as it's been testified that it's always Mrs. Briggs who's driving the truck. But no, not on that occasion. Everyone now agrees it was in fact the defendant who was plowing. That is more evidence that on the December 3rd incident, where it's absolutely clear on the video that the truck is plowing in front of the driveway, irregardless of what you can see on the December 4th video, the driver of the truck was obviously plowing on that occasion with no regard at all for this court's order. And again, if that was Mrs. Briggs doing the plowing, that would have shown extremely poor judgment to think that she could do that in the defendant's truck, or the truck that was the subject of the court's order originally in this case, and why we're here. In addition, we know that the defendant is compensated when he plows, but apparently Mrs. Briggs decided to do this on her own. That is further evidence that it's more likely that the incident occurred the way the prosecutor argues. And something that was very curious to me is Mrs. Briggs testifying that she does not do the more technical or heavy plowing, but she's been doing this for 20 or 30 years. I think she said 30 years, 20 years in this particular subdivision. That just strikes me as very odd that anyone that's been plowing for 30 years is scared off by heavy snowstorms. It just doesn't add up. And so for all of those reasons, I do find that the defendant was the driver of the car on all of these occasions. And therefore, the question is, what is an appropriate sentence? So, Mr. Hubble, do you care to make any argument on that?
Well, Your Honor, I'm aware of what the recommendation is. I don't think it's necessary, but you've made your ruling, and I don't think any further jail time is needed. I think my client has already indicated he's hired Elmer's. He wants this to be done with and over with. We would ask that just probation without a jail sentence.
Mr. Olson.
So we would ask that we agree with the recommendation from the probation department. There needs to be some consequences for this type of action. So we would ask the court to impose a jail sentence.
So the testimony of Mr. Quinones, I think he goes by JR, was that the defendant not only did the plowing, but also flashed his lights, lowered the plow in an aggressive manner. Now that was not part of the tape, but I do accept the testimony of that witness. And the defendant also blatantly ignored this court's order. And so now that he's facing possible jail time, he finally gets a contractor to do the plowing, as he should have at the beginning of all this. And it's a little too late. And so I think it's important to continue the probation so that he complies with these conditions. But I do think Ms. Morton's recommendation of 5 days in jail is appropriate. And so that's what we're going to do. And hopefully he will get the idea that his arrogance and his ignoring the court's order is not going to pay off. So that's it.
wanted to give you a copy, sexual. Here, love you. Candidate's wife. We're not trying to find it. This also, yeah, this is his, like, can you give it to his wife or give it to me? Yeah.
Back with the search warrant?
Yeah.
Give him just 1 second.
Oh, yeah, no
I just had a big hearing, so give me 1 minute and I'll be right with you.
Okay.
Okay.